Suicide is a tough topic, but the Washington County Reach for Hope Suicide Prevention Coalition wants you to know that there is always hope. We are a caring community reaching out to provide compassion and hope for a community free of suicide. In the next half hour, we'll talk with community partners to identify risk factors, raise awareness, and discuss prevention strategies. Hello, I'm Melissa Anderson, and welcome to another edition of Reach for Hope, where there's always hope. Parents sometimes don't know what to do when they see their children going through mood swings. Oftentimes their teenagers may be going through a hormonal change, but could it be more than that? With us today to talk about this and how to recognize these signs of depression or anxiety in some cases in children is Paula Frainer from the Washington County School District. And Paula, you're a mental health and behavioral specialist. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Great. Thanks for joining us on the show today. Now, first of all, tell me a little bit about yourself, how you got interested in this, and why you do what you do.
Well, thank you for having me. I actually love working with our students at the Washington County School District, and I was a head counselor for many years, and then they asked me to be the mental health and behavior specialist, and since I do therapy privately in the evenings, I thought this was a perfect fit, and here we are.
Yeah, now, in your role, you also have to be a leader when it comes to a crisis in the schools for the entire school district. To tell us a little bit about the crisis team that you have on board and how is that set up?
So the crisis team is a really powerful resource for our school district. And when a crisis happens, the crisis lead is called, and we work out the details, and then we call in the whole crisis team, which is one counselor in each of each cone site. And then we really would like all counselors to be involved. And so we're in the middle of training all of them, but we really dive into the situation. We make sure every bit of it is covered, and that if there's any extended family, friends, best friends, people on, even in the community that we're on, teams with them, anything, it's all covered. Everybody's looked out for and everybody's checked up on. And we have tons of resources we have out there to access as well.
Yeah, it's not any fun to deal with that. So what type of training then do these people have in order to go through and receive and deal with children who might be depressed or may attempt suicide?
That is a good question. So we get annual training, and in fact, we're going to the Rocky Mountain Prevention training just here in December. And we go to every single training we can get our hands on. We keep up on the latest and greatest, and then we bring it back and train all of our counselors so that everybody's aware and can take care of any need that comes up.
What we like to talk about is suicide prevention and not get it to the point of where we're past that point. So we want to talk a little bit about the anxiety and the depression and things. How can we prevent a crisis from happening and turning to that crisis stage? Sometimes it's hard to tell the difference between hormones raging maybe in the middle schools and the stage where there's a red flag and we need to say, enough is enough, we've got to do something.
Absolutely, especially with COVID going on. There's a lot of anxiety out there, and it's not only in the students, it's in the whole family, it's in the whole community. So some of the red flags to look for are definitely kids that are sleeping longer than normal, kids that are starting to change friends or pull back, be lonely, be in their rooms too much. They're not communicating with their parents like they used to, just big shifts and change. They may not be eating properly. Their balance is all off, and they're highly emotional. If you see any of these red flags, it may not mean that they're in trouble, but it's worth looking into before it goes any further.
Right, and that could be for any age of child.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, most of us as parents may think of these as just mood swings and just a teen moment, especially, like I said, during the teenage years, and figure that our children are just resilient and they will bounce back. Will they bounce back, though?
So we're not seeing that they're as resilient as we would hope they are. At least many of them are. But for the majority that you're seeing these red flags on, they're the ones saying, I don't have the skills I need, and that's why I'm starting to shut down here, and anxiety and depression starting to grow. And we don't want that to go to levels where it gets toxic. So we at the school district have a great plan in place that kind of explains what the hijacked brain is, teaches them skill sets, helps them regulate their emotions. And when that's not enough, we have resources in the community to reach out for therapy and get them some more help.
You were talking about regulating emotions. What is that?
So just a quick explanation is you have a forebrain that's in the front of your brain, and you have the midbrain, which is in the back, which houses your emotions, and then you have an amygdala. When the amygdala fires because something is scary, sad, makes you nervous, makes you anxious, just something that's a big emotion, it'll fire. And when it does, it naturally will go to the emotions. And if we don't recognize this in ourselves, we'll start to breathe really fast. Our oxygen will go really low and our body will conserve. And so when it conserves, it looks at where it needs it the most, which is your vitals and the part of the brain you're using. Well, you're using your emotions. So your forebrain, which is where you're cognitive, what you think, what you problem solve, well, that shuts off because not enough oxygen needs to go there. You don't have enough to go there. So without the ability to problem solve and be cognitive, your emotions are in the driver's seat, and it's just going to escalate. And that's where our depression, anxiety gets out of control. So we're teaching our students to recognize when this process happens, and we're teaching them distress tolerance skills to be able to manage that and get that down and get that forebrain back online so that they can get through their issues.
I've heard this called that your brain is hijacked. Tell us what that means.
Absolutely. So it means that your emotions have hijacked your entire brain and you're not able to access your ability to be cognitive and problem solve. And so they're in the driver's seat, and we do things we regret, and our emotions, our body doesn't know if your emotion is telling the truth or not. And so when that's in the driver's seat, it thinks everything it's believing is real. And so that's how anxiety will grow into panic attacks. Depression will grow, into places you don't want to go, where they're thinking risky decisions. And so if we can unhijack our brain and get it regulated, we can calm down and think through things and realize that our brain was not telling the truth. It was a story in our head, and we can deal with that story and get on to better things.
So maybe that's what happens when, people get also on drugs or alcohol. It probably hijacks that part of the brain as well. I mean, might not be thinking in clear terms.
Absolutely. That's exactly what it does.
Yeah. What are some examples then of this? You were talking about tolerance skills needed to deal with this brain that's hijacked. Breathing deep, or what kinds of things can you do?
Absolutely. So because you're breathing so shallow and your oxygen is depleted in your body, and so it shut off your forebrain, we need to get that forebrain back online. So we'd call back. There's a lot of examples of breathing. So if you'd pick your favorite one and use breathing and just get yourself reoxygenated. And then we need to use our forebrain. So it can be simple skills like counting back from 20. That kicks in your front forebrain, and it helps it work so that the emotional side of your brain doesn't have to be so hypersensitive, because you're using different parts, so it'll calm down. And when it realizes I don't need to be in panic mode because you're figuring things out or working your brain to do other things, then it unhijacks and allows you to be able to problem solve and get through things. So anything you can do to use your forebrain. Some quick examples are sing your favorite song, count back from 20, do the ABCs backwards, get up and move your body. Do anything that will distract yourself from the situation and the looping you're going through right now with the depression, anxiety thoughts. Get yourself out of that situation, get that brain calmed down, and then you can go back and look at that situation and handle it so much better.
How about singing? Would that help?
Absolutely.
I was going to say that's one thing that kind of makes me get back on tune if I just go sing something and then get away, because I don't like numbers. So
Absolutely. And call a friend. Face-to-face contact is the best dopamine you'll ever get.
Yeah. So how do school counselors then play a big role in teaching these types of skills? Do they do it in the classrooms, or do you do it outside the class, or how do you do that?
That's a good question. So currently all of our teachers are teaching these skills once a week in the classroom. The teachers will go in and take a deeper dive, and they will really go into it with activities and practicing, and they really drive those in. And then if that's not enough, we were fortunate enough to hire behavior techs this year. And when they see that a student has a skill that they are not capable of using, and that's why it's kind of, and here's the word again, hijacking education at that point, then we pull them out and reteach the skills they need so that their behavior can be managed and they can do it themselves, and it's a win-win for everyone.
So do all elementary schools then have school counselors?
We absolutely did this year. We have got those. We're working on behavior techs in every one of them. So we're excited at the forward progress we're making.
Right. Now, we've heard about wellness rooms. Can you explain how those are helpful as well?
They sure are. So a wellness room is when a student knows that they need to regulate and they need a minute to just step away, allow themselves to regulate, and come back into the classroom. And the wellness rooms have all kinds of skills, tools, people in there to help. And we're just teaching kids to regulate those emotions so that they don't hijack. They can regulate and get back to class, and everything's good.
So these techs you were talking about, behavior techs, what's their role then? You mentioned their role, but you have some place that you can take them, or things that you can give them to be able to deal with unhijacking the brain. What?
Absolutely. So the behavior text will take them out of the classroom so that learning can continue, and then we'll reteach them the skills they need for their behavior management. And we have all kinds of great tools. We have watches that will vibrate, especially if you're working with focus or with the ability to keep your hands to yourself or stay on task. They will buzz, and we find baseline, and depending on how long that student can go, for example, for focus, if they can go 20 minutes, we buzz that watch at 19 minutes, and then they use their skills at their desk to regulate so they can go a little longer to the next 19, and we do it again and again. And then as soon as they're good at that, we just keep stretching that time out until they have learned those skills. And we can do that with all kinds of skill sets. We have BiTAPs. We have so many manipulatives to help students regulate their behavior. It's pretty exciting.
That's pretty crazy how you can get the technology matched into that, and and I imagine it triggers something, and they get used to that, right?
Absolutely, and that speaks their language. They're excited about it, and we're moving behavior in ways that we haven't ever before. It's so exciting.
That's awesome. So what else is the Washington County School District doing to offer increased mental health in our area?
We're really excited. The state gave us a mental health grant, and we partnered up with Southwest Behavior, and they have partnered up with 19 so far, and we're looking for any more that want to join us, 19 therapy centers. And when we have a need that we see at our school, and what we're doing at school is not quite enough, we call in the parents and let them know that we will pay for 5 free therapy sessions, and we send the referral off to Southwest if the parents agree, and then they get to pick between all the therapists available out there, and then so that they can feel comfortable with their choice, and then they take their student there. And oftentimes what we're finding is when the student starts to get help and the parents are seeing what great improvement it is, they eventually bring their whole family in, and we're helping families, which will help communities. So we're so excited about this program.
Unhijack everybody's brain, right? What is the MAP program for students who may need additional mental health support?
So that's the program I was talking about,
Right,
and that is
MAP.
the 5 free sessions with therapists in the community, and it's at no cost, and every student's available to go. And we've paid for a lot of spots, and we are excited to be using them. Last year we used 133 spots for the elementary in 6 months, because that's when the program came online. 89 at the intermediate, 42 at the middle, and 58 at the high school, and we are expecting to just double and keep increasing as the awareness is out there.
Yeah, I think we had a graphic for that, the therapy usage. So it looks like it's being used a lot. Are we seeing an increased need since this coronavirus came out?
We absolutely are, because everybody became lonely and became nervous, and their world they just feel like they can't trust anything anymore. Everything just feels in an upheaval, and so anxiety's through the roof. So this program has really helped us address that need.
Tell us about the differences between males and females, and how that might play a role or impact as far as their mental health.
We're so excited because historically males did not ever go get mental health, very rarely. They were kind of the stigma was suck it up and be strong. And with us being able to refer the males, we're actually getting more usage for males than we are females, just barely, but still we are higher on male usage than female usage, which we want all males to know. You don't need to suffer in silence. If you have a need, let's meet that need, and we have the resources to do that. So we're excited to be changing that stigma.
What's the difference then between men and women when it comes to suicide attempts and things where does their brain go?
So that's a good question, because women generally will attempt 3 times more than men, but men complete 3 times more than women because they use more lethal means. And so everybody needs mental health, and everybody needs to learn about their hijacked brain and get the skills they need. And this is a perfect resource to get it out there for anybody in need.
Wow, those are some amazing statistics. Men are 3.5 times more likely to die by suicide. That's incredible to hear that, and we've got to get that changed.
Absolutely.
What hope do you have for parents then who may not know what to do with their children?
So we are super excited about being able to get this information out. And thank you for having me on here to help push this information out, because we want all the parents to know that the MAP program exists and that there's 5 sessions of free therapy for any child in need. And we want them to get it early before it gets to the tragic levels or the toxic levels of let's address it early. Let's look at those red flags we were talking about earlier. If you see those in your students, then reach out to your school counselor, and they have all the resources. They have the referral system, and we'll just streamline you and get you in as soon as possible and get those needs met.
And you're talking about all ages of children, right? From kindergarten up to seniors in high school. Where are we seeing the most usage or need here?
So currently we're seeing the most usage in elementary because they are good at talking and expressing, or their behaviors manifest a lot faster. Where in the high school, we're relying on them to let us know, because they're better at hiding it, and they're better at feeling like they're dealing with that shame and guilt going on. And so they don't want to tell anyone they need help because that's shameful. That's embarrassing. So we're trying to break that stigma. So we have all kinds of programs going in the school to break the silence. And we have those wellness rooms going. We have those curriculums in all the classrooms. And the amazing thing is when a counselor goes out and does the curriculum and says, here's what we can help you with. There's no reason to suffer in silence. It's just a matter of learning how your brain works and some skill sets. Then kids are starting to open up, and we are seeing the trend change and people reaching out. But currently, definitely the elementary has the most usage.
Yeah. And in the high schools, I know they have the Hope Squads, but they don't offer that because younger kids they're not really peer related yet. They're not peer pressured yet.
Correct.
So how does that work? How do the younger children relate? Do they just find the adults being mentors since they don't have the peers to be mentors?
Absolutely, or their behaviors will manifest, and then we can start talking to them, and they'll and if they have a relationship, because the whole school district's big push is every student needs to be connected, and so we're putting every student. A lot of the schools are putting every student's picture up, and then they're telling the whole faculty, pull the picture down if you have a good connection with them. And the students that nobody pulled down, that's the ones that are getting on lists, and people are purposeful going out there and making those connections. So we want all students to feel connected and feel safe with at least one adult in the school that they can tell anything to, and that's how our elementaries are opening up and letting us know what's going on.
That's a good system. I'm glad you got all the counselors and the techs and everybody there to help out. Why is it important then for you to be involved with the Reach for Hope Coalition and suicide prevention through these programs?
You know what? They've really got our Hope Squads up and going, which we love our Hope Squads because we are allowed to go in and really dive down and teach them all the skills, because oftentimes kids won't go to an adult, they'll go to their friends. So if their friends have the basic skills and can hand them off to the adults, then it's a win-win. And so these coalitions are all about prevention and helping each other and getting the community involved and skilling up our Hope Squads, and that is powerful.
Yeah, and you can stay connected in the community as well. The Reach for Hope also gives out comfort bags through the hospitals and things, and I understand you have your resources that you hand out as well. How important is it to have these comfort bags and kits and things to send home, resources for people to be able to understand, that there's always somebody out there to help?
Absolutely. There's always hope. So those comfort bags play a key role, because oftentimes when you're having your darkest day and something very traumatic has just happened to you and your family, the last thing you're thinking about is resources and how to get help. You're just trying to survive the moment. So because our principals and our counselors and our teachers who know these students go out to the homes and they are there to comfort that family, they wanted something to be able to take to them. And so the Reach for Hope Coalition got some comfort bags together. Currently, we have a really nice, soft, comforting blanket, some comfort food in there. We have really great books on grief or loss or whatever the need is that family's going through. And then we have all of our resources there, some parenting tips. If it's a loss, then we have the 5 stages of grief. And we just kind of put a bunch of resources in there so that family doesn't feel alone. But the thing that we feel we feel is super impactful is that the principals and the counselors can then say, hey, I want to tell you about our MAP program, because let us help you get through this moment. And it's for your whole family, all your students in need. And that's when we can get them involved with those 5 free therapy sessions in the moment they need it, instead of waiting till they're suffering for a long time and behaviors start to manifest. We can do it right there in that moment. So that bag's kind of an easy way for the faculty to go out to that family and have something to give them and say, we love you, you're part of our community family, and we have these resources for you. And they're really welcoming, and that gets that foot in the door.
You have about probably 3,500 kids in the Washington County School District. I don't know how you keep track of all of those, in this fashion for their mental health. But tell me a little bit about what the percentages might be, or what you're dealing with when you're talking about behavioral health versus, mental health problems that we might be dealing with. I just want to know how big the problem really is.
So because of our plan, and we've got everybody on board working on mental health, and we've educated everybody, so they're educating the students, and it's just kind of a big family of taking care of each other. We can take care of the majority. Generally, 80% of the students can be taken care of in-house. But then you have your top 20, and about 15% of those, that's where those behavior techs come in, and all those manipulation tools, and the more intensive skill sets are being taught right there in the classroom, and they're taught to the need that's going on in the schools. When we do all of that, and that is not enough, then that top 5% is the ones that we're reaching out and getting community help. And that's usually the ones we have the therapists come in. But truly, we can have the therapists come in at any stage if it's needed. But we do reach out to the community on that top 3. We have intensive groups. We have people come in and work with them. We can refer them out. So we love the community for helping us in that tier 3.
Yeah, so at what point, or how can parents then get involved if they believe that their child might be struggling from home? I'm not saying that they fall through the cracks, but some might. How can they get involved? How do they get a hold of the school? What happens? How does this work?
That's a good question, because it doesn't matter who identifies the red flags, whether it's someone at school or someone at home or a best friend. It doesn't matter. We're asking anybody, come to your school counselor, let them know what you're seeing so we can get the appropriate help. Our doors are open to anyone. You can walk in, and these resources are for absolutely any kid in our school district. So anytime you see a need, let's make sure we're looking at it and getting it met.
So they come into the school, or is there anywhere they could call? Or, I mean, it's been tough with COVID. The communication has just been hard. And I imagine you've had some telehealth programs and some things where you've kind of reached out to parents that way, or to kids that way, but oftentimes people don't want to sit there and stare at a screen. They want to talk in person.
Absolutely. And so through the MAP program, we do have the majority of them we do have in person. They go to a therapy center, which we prefer that, because then you get that human touch, and that is always more powerful. But if we do have students that are just, because of COVID or other special needs, they don't want to go in person, we do have the telehealth, and we can have that accessed in your home. If you don't have that ability in your home, or it's not working out for you well, we are allowing it to happen at school. So we can set aside a time in a room, and we can do telehealth in the class, in a classroom that student is all by themselves and able to talk to that therapist and have their session that way. And we're being as creative as we need to be. So as needs arise, we figure out how to make it work.
Yeah, that's what you got to do, is just be able to move and shake with the moving and shaking that's going on in our world right now, which there's a lot going on. Which brings me to my last question. What would you like parents and children to know then when it comes around talking about mental health, suicide prevention, and the stigma that surrounds this terrible tragedy that can occur?
Absolutely. And if I could give a little bit of advice, being the crisis team lead, one thing I see a lot happening is parents so much want to get their students, out of any of the toxic things in our society. So what they say to their student is, "You're not looking at pornography, are you?" And that tells the student they have to say, no, I'm not, right? It's not opening the door to, I am actually caught in this and I need help. And so when we're talking to students about alcohol, drugs, sex, pornography, the best way as parents that we can address that is just saying, the last time you saw pornography, what'd you do about it? Because every kid has a computer in their hand, and every kid's been exposed. And if they feel shameful of being able to admit to it, that's where the secret grows, and that's where we get out of, things get into trouble and gets toxic. So I would, my best advice to parents is, don't say you haven't done this right. It's when you were exposed to this, what happened? And then you can be someone that they feel can handle it rather than someone that doesn't want to hear the answer could be yes. So that's where I'm seeing a lot of problems happen with parents. They're the last one to know because the way they ask the questions is not inviting enough. The student doesn't trust to tell them.
Right. And we've got so much social media and YouTube stuff out there now. We just need to be careful. So I'd just like to say thank you very much for joining us and sharing with us. And hopefully some of the people will have resources out there that you can help them with, and just they will reach out. So again, thank you for joining us today, Paula. And I'd like to say thank you for joining us. And again, remember, if your child's having difficulties, reach out for help because there's always hope. The Reach for Hope Coalition wants you to know that we care about you and we are here to help. If you or someone you know is thinking about suicide, reach out. You're not alone. To access resources for yourself or others, visit our webpage at reachforhopeutah.org. That's reach4hopeutah.org. If you are experiencing a crisis, please call the Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-TALK because you matter and there is always hope.
This has been a production from A Podcast Studio.